Hey guys, today I want to talk a little bit about something we've talked about quite a lot in the past, and that's toxic expats. And it's not just toxic expats. I mean, if you look at our country, the United States, it's become quite toxic back there. Australia, the UK, Denmark, Sweden's having issues. And the funny part about it is this, is when we get expats here, we get both good and bad. And I was thinking about this the other day, like, where did we go wrong? How did we get to this point, and why, who, when, where? You know, how did this all start? And today we're gonna try to tear this apart. And I want you guys to put your 10 cents worth in here in the comments if you would. I'd appreciate that, because everybody has a different outlook on this here. I'm going to tell you my outlook, and this is from my perspective, and from what I've seen. I could be wrong, I could be right. Maybe I'm right on part of it. Maybe I'm right on all of it. Maybe I'm wrong on all of it. I don't know. It's just from my perspective. What I want to talk about is this, is that back in the United States, the divide kind of works like this here. And I've seen this over here from the expats that come in here, because we get both good and bad. There's two sides divided. Perhaps there's more than two, but there's mainly two. And one thinks they're right, and the other thinks that they're right. And it's kind of the good against the bad. The people that are okay with the country going the way it's going, they're perfectly fine. They think everything's okay. And the ones that believe going back to the days of before, when the United States was friendlier and kinder and better, and that we should try to kind of stick to those values and stuff. And then there's the other crowd that thinks that we should, you know, have all these freedoms that are kind of strange to us older people, the people that are from the old school. And we see that as wrecking our world. And I see both sides. I don't agree with one side, but, you know, I understand both sides. And I also see people as kind of toxic and non-toxic. And some people would call the non-toxic side the toxic side. And it kind of goes both ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's both sides have their toxic aspects, I guess. And, you know, and when and it's not just all about politics. It's something about the people. The people have divided and drawn their lines. Some of them would say over political parties. Some would say over the way they feel about the world, their belief system. And it's not all politics. It's not always all politics, but it seems to have become that. And things kind of changed at a certain point. And for me, when I look back, I think America always had some sort of a toxicity. I would say probably starting maybe in the 90s, I started seeing it a little bit more and more and more. And it was like almost a domino effect. It started a little, and all of a sudden there was a whole bunch of people that became like that. Somebody flicked the dominoes, and all of a sudden it went through communities, and it became like that. But you know, when I thought it was going to change, I was saying to myself one time when this was all going on, is this, that and this actually has a lot to do with what I'm going to get to with the expats. I remember back in 9/11. I remember the day that 9/11 happened. I remember working in my school and everybody coming in and getting their kids and stuff, and I remember walking outside to direct traffic that day, and it was quiet. There wasn't a car on the road. There wasn't an airplane in the sky, because everybody was sitting at home watching TV, and the kids were getting ready to get out, and the parents were all showing up late because they were glued to their TVs. And most of the kids would walk home. And I remember that day as everything happened fast. The kids went out. They went directly home. It was like a quiet procession where everybody went home, and it was really fast. Faster than I've ever seen. Everybody wanted to get home in front of their TV set. And I'd often said that it would take a good war or something to happen tragic that would bring this country together. And sometimes good comes out of bad. And I was kind of hoping after this, and all of us were kind of like wrecked after that. We were all united in our sadness, but we were also united behind the president and the country. At least most of us were, in that we were going to try to stop this, what had happened to these people in the planes and the towers and everything. They were going to stop it. At least that's what everybody thought. And I remember being sad for months on end. People weren't saying too much. The talk was always about 9/11 for probably a good 6 months, maybe even more. And I remember that talk, and there wasn't much talk about hatred between people. There was something different. And I was hoping that something good would come out of that. And I remember being so united in our sadness back then. And I remember going to a concert, and it was a free concert for families of people that lost people in 9/11. And I was invited to go with some friends that had lost a relative. And it was Don Henley, and it was David Crosby of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. And I remember going to see that concert, and everybody was so quiet. There was this quietness about this place because people weren't really talking that much. They were whispering because it was kind of a solemn night. And I remember David Crosby starting off. He was the one that opened, and he sang a lot of good songs, and it was really beautiful to, you know, just kind of having a nice night and enjoying the night. But it was still had that sadness over it. And Don Henley got up there and he started talking a little bit, and he wanted everybody to kind of enjoy the night. He got up to sing in a New York Minute, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. I think we all needed that time when we all wanted to release all that sadness and all have a good cry for ourselves. And I remember tears running down my face, and I was trying to hold back because, you know, you're a man and you don't want to show that. But I remember I looked around at everybody, and almost everybody there was in tears or rubbing tears off their eyes when he sang in a New York Minute, because he slowed it down a little bit. And it was probably the most beautiful thing I remember about 9/11, because it wasn't much beautiful to remember during that time. It was difficult, and everybody was talking about people that they had lost in the towers or lost in an airplane. They were telling the stories, and I remember all the stories coming out. But I really thought after that night that America was going to come together. It never did. It never solidified itself, and people started going the opposite way. You know, they were going the opposite way in many different ways. And I saw people getting more toxic after that. And it's been a long time since 9/11, let's face it. And I thought that would be the thing that would unite us all. And it just didn't fix the United States. I think we had a few years when it was quiet, and after that, and it was kind of peaceful, and, you know, people weren't talking too much. But that toxicity started creeping back in again, and people started becoming toxic again. And not the whole world, not the whole United States. Certain areas were better than other areas, because certain areas have that culture, that Southern culture or small community culture, where people are really close. I think Lawrence had both good and bad in that. Where I came from, Lawrence, Massachusetts, we had a toxic culture in the community, which was mostly the politicians, believe it or not. The politicians and the people could be toxic too a little bit, but I noticed there was like a divide happening. It started around that time, and it kept gradually getting worse and worse and worse. And over the years, I kept telling myself, I got to get out of here. I need to get out of here. I need to move on. I need to get the heck out of Dodge. The problem was that when I thought of coming over to the Philippines or Belize or whatever, and my first choice was actually Belize or going someplace in South or Central America, was that there was a lot of dangers down there. A lot of drug running, things like that, especially in Belize. There's a lot of issues there. All the other countries, there's drug running, kidnappings, things like that. And not to say it doesn't happen in Asia too, because it does. It happens even in the Philippines. There's things that have happened here, you know, but the Philippines seemed to fit my bill a little bit more. I knew a little bit more about the Philippines. I had been with a Filipino before, and I knew the people were fairly decent here, you know, and not to say that they don't have their issues here, they do. But when I decided to come here, and I finally came here, You know, I thought most of the expats, because the ones I had talked to, were escaping or leaving the United States, depending on how you want to word it, to come here and to get away from that and to live free of all that aggravation and all that stuff. And come to find out that a lot of people from the other side were coming here too, for the same reason, opposite side. They were tired of the political divide. They were tired of the talk. They were tired of the, some people call it fake news. Some people call it real news. That was, everybody took a side on everything. Everything had to have a side. I'm not sure how that started. I'm not sure why it started, but everybody had to have a side. Right or wrong, it was the whatever you believed in. And when I got over here, I started noticing all these people around me that were both in my group or in other groups and stuff. As I got more and more involved with expats and stuff, and you see 10, maybe all the way up to 30% of the people, maybe even more. Some people say it's 50-50. Some people say 90% of the people are messed up here. I'm not quite sure. It depends on each person's view of it, because your view of a messed up person and my view of a messed up person might be different. Some people might think I'm messed up. Some people might think everybody's messed up, you know? But from my point of view, I would say 10 to 30%, probably closer to 30%, maybe a little bit more, are messed up in some way. They carry a lot of that toxicity with them. They have to down people and put people down and gossip and do all this stuff. And it drags you into that muck because you have to defend yourself. You have to do a lot of stuff that you don't want to do. And I've been dragged through the muck a few times. And, you know, I mean, you know, between vloggers out there and other people. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't bother me, and sometimes it does. And when it does, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to defend myself. But in the past year, maybe even past, but probably mostly the past, I would say the past year, I used to have a lot of love for most of the expats, and I still respect a lot of the good expats here. And I don't want to, you know, I feel bad for the new expats coming in here because they're expecting a lot here. And if you get involved with a lot of expats here, I think you're inviting a lot of trouble into your life. I hear it all the time. I talked to a guy up in Angeles. He told me a story up there in the VFW where there was some toxicity up there and people that he had met around the area. And he runs into a lot of toxic people. I run into a lot of toxic people. I have two guys down in Dumaguete that have called me in the past week telling me that they want to get out of Dumaguete, and they were asking me about coming here. And I told them, I says, well, we're not without our issues either. We have issues here too. And, you know, I've had things happen to me and it got dragged out into the streets, you know, and thrown out there in front of everybody. You know, half the stuff was true, half the stuff was lies. Again, people pick it up and they run with it and put their twist to the story when they don't know the whole story about you or your life. And they have to put their spin on it, whether it's somebody close to you or somebody that's not close to you. Everybody has to put their spin on it. And if they don't like you, they're going to make you look worse. If they like you, maybe they won't say nothing or whatever, and they just leave it alone because they know that you're better than that. And, you know, I really, in this past year, I really have found out who my good friends are and who my bad friends are, you know. And I have a lot of good friends, and I have a lot of acquaintances that I see every month at the dinners who I consider friends too. There's a lot of friends that I meet there. And I love these people. But in the past year, I've thought more and more about getting away from this here. And part of it, I formed this here, a lot of this. These people that came here, they came here wanting to get away from the U.S. And it's still a good place here. if you don't get too involved in the drama and the crap that goes on here, the toxicity, it's still a good place to live here in Tracy Martirez and in the surrounding areas. But I got to tell you that I learned a hard lesson this past year in finding out the way things work. And if you try to stay away from things, or if you go through some tragedy or something like that, you really find out who your friends are. You really find out things that you never knew before. And it's kind of sad when you see people walk away from you when they know that you're going through problems, and they take, you know, when you're going through a toxic thing that happened to you, doesn't matter what it is. And I've had several things happen this past year. And it happens to anybody. I've had toxic things happen in the United States, as have you or anybody else. I mean, you can't escape that. It just is part of the world. Everybody has gone through divorces. Everybody has had things happen to them. Nobody can say that they walk away unscathed, because I've had people, well, I never had that happen to me, Steve. It's like, well, you know, it has happened to you. You just don't want to admit it. Everybody's had bad things happen. And it seems like when you go through those bad things, people have to make it worse for you. You know, they have to keep throwing that in your face. Even when you're done going through, walking through hell, you know, they say when you're walking through hell, just keep on walking till you get to the other side. And I kept walking, but people kept slinging mud at me for things that they knew nothing about. And it kind of brought home the U.S. here. You know, it brought it back to me like, wow, I thought I left all this home, and obviously I didn't. And, you know, when you're down and people don't know that you're down, and, you know, you're not looking for sympathy, you're looking for friends to help, you know, help drag you out, because sometimes you start slowing down and you're not making it. And at the time, I needed friends to help walk me through that. And several of my friends came to, you know, walked up to the plate to help me. You know, they helped carry me through. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am today. But, you know, life is tough. And I look at that as, I learned a lesson a lot about people. That toxicity is going to exist. And I think it's here for good now, pretty much. I don't know what it would take to change that. I don't know if it would take World War III. God forbid if we ever come to that. I don't know, a major disaster maybe, to take people, you know, and shake them up a little bit and say, hey, we got to kind of come close to start going back to that point where we love each other again. I've had people push me, attack me, talk crap about me, and a lot of other things over the years, and we all have had that done. It's just toxicity. When you piss off somebody, whether it be a girlfriend or a friend or whatever, and you try to walk away, they're going to keep reminding you, or they throw mud in your face, or they throw your past in your face, or what have you. It kind of shows you where the world's at today. Because instead of kicking people when they're down, I have a lot of people call me when they're having issues and confide in me. And I try to walk them through their situation and help them the best I can. That's what being a friend is. I think a lot of us have forgotten what a friendship really means to people. And we should try to be a friend rather than be that dickhead who causes all the problems in the world. Instead of being the person that you know, it's just, sometimes you have to learn when your friends need help. I've had people here when I was, you know, going through some issues that were friends. They showed me their colors. I've also had other people who I thought were my friends, were not my friends, and kept throwing stuff in my face from things that had happened over the past few years or whatever, and really try to, you know, get me going, get my goat up, trying to tick me off or piss me off. And these are people who I thought were my friends, who I started having second thoughts about. And it was more than one. It was several people that did that, you know, and there was several people that came forward and helped. And, you know, I'm not sure where people in the world are headed today, but I'll say this here, that it's kind of scary living in this world and being 60 years old and retired, knowing that the world's going to hell in a handbasket. And I mean, I'm a Christian guy. I believe that things are going to get better. I believe that we, you know, in praying for these things or whatever, and I hope they right themselves in the world. I hope that these people learn that, you know, it's better to help people than to hurt people. And I come over here with the premise that I wanted to help people. And it seems like even some of the people that I helped sometimes are expat trash. You know, I hate to say that. It's like people say trailer park trash or whatever. You know, and a lot of Filipinos will tell you the same thing. There's a lot of expat trash here. The cream rises to the top sometimes. I see people that are in positions that they probably shouldn't be in. And people that I talk to sometimes, that I see them looking to start trouble because they think it's fun to watch. It could be in the form of ball busting, you know, things like that. And ball busting sometimes goes too far. I remember working as a roofer with my brother one time, and my brother was particularly fond of that type of humor. He thought it was funny. And he had hurt a lot of people. A lot of people would quit working for him or whatever because he was so nasty. Because when he was a kid, he worked for this guy, and that guy would constantly do that to you. He would down you and do things to you. And my brother became that person when he got older, unfortunately. And he'd like to hurt people. He liked to hurt their feelings and stuff like that. And he was very hard to work for, you know. And he had to live with that in himself. You know, and I'm not sure how it affected him, because towards the end we kind of parted our ways and stopped talking to each other. But I see a lot of hurt in the world today. I think families are having issues. I'm not sure how we can ever right this ship, but I was always hopeful that something would bring us together. And now I see that the United States is actually exporting some of this hatred, this stuff that's going on. Whatever you want to call it, you can call it, you know, you can call it political names or other names. I think it's a kind of curse. You know, it's a curse on the world that people are so angry that they want to hurt other people. But I want to talk about this because I think that's part of the toxicity that's going on in the Philippines, unfortunately. And I don't think there's any way of stopping this toxicity that goes on in the Philippines or in the United States or the UK or Australia. I hear it from all expats, from all walks of life in the world. It's something tragic. And, you know, God willing, it's going to stop. Hopefully, people will wake up, or some leader maybe will step up to the plate and say, you know, I want to change the way people think. I want to change the way the world works. I want people to be united and reach across the aisles and fix things, whether it's a political party or whether it's just people in general, whether it's ethnic groups, whether it's blacks or whites, whether it's Chinese and American, whether it's Asian and American, or Indians and American, and Indian nationalists and American, or whoever. I just would like to see somebody that would step up to the plate as whether it be a president, because the United States is looked at as like a world leader, that would unite us rather than divide us. Now, I usually don't talk politics, and in this I've tried to keep politics out of this. I'm going to say this: whether you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat, we all need to pull together at this point in time. Because if we keep letting this run loose and run amok the way it is, our children have to live in this. And I'm not saying that our children aren't at some fault in this too, because some of them are. You know, I think it's everybody has to reach across the aisle and say, hey, I love you. You know, and that 4-letter word is more important than any other word in the world today. That 4-letter word of love. You know, I think we've lost a lot of our love for and compassion for other people, for other human beings. I've seen people in the streets get hit by a vehicle here on a bicycle one time. And this is going back a ways. And nobody came to that person's aid. They crawled over to the side of the road. Nobody ran over to help them. But I do remember also a story in Manila. My friend told me that he tripped and he fell and he hurt himself. And he was in his 70s. And a Muslim lady, of all people, come over and helped him up. And a bunch of Muslim people helped him and wiped his blood off and stuff like that. And, you know, I was like, that's a really wonderful story. It's a wonderful story, you know, that those people actually helped this guy. And yet I've seen other people that wouldn't do that. You know, that's the sadness here, because it has to be, we have to be able to live with each other's differences, whether it's religion or whatever, and still reach across and say, you know, hey, I love you. I don't care what religion you are. I still want to be your friend. I don't care what political affiliation you are. I don't care what color you are. I have people here that I won't talk to because I've seen things that they've done to me, and I don't want it to re-happen again. People might take that as I hate them or something. No, it's not that I really hate them. I dislike what they did. It doesn't mean I don't love those people. It doesn't mean I hate those people. Some people I have a disdain for. It doesn't mean I really hate them. I disdain what they did, and I disdain that they are who they are. And I would hope that they would change. The fact is that these people usually repeat what they do, and they repeat what they do, and they repeat what they do, and they keep doing it. It becomes a habit. And unfortunately, that's kind of something, I think if you do something for years and years and years, and we've done this for years and years as a culture in the world, whether it be the U.S. culture or the whole world culture, I think we've done this so much that it's ingrained in us now, and we have to kind of spend a long time trying to break that habit of hating people and being toxic as people. Anyway, guys, I want to talk about that because it does tie in with some of the toxicity over here in the expat world, because I don't think it's any different here as expats as in the United States. In fact, it might even be a little bit more toxic over here with the expats in some places than in others. Some people say, Steve, I don't run into any of this. I don't see any of this, what you talk about, in where I live. Yet I hear from Dumaguete, I hear from Angeles, but I hear from other people that live out in the boonies or far away from expats that it's fine there. And that's good for them. I think they're lucky and they're blessed that they're in those places where they're not running into these people. But anyway, guys, God bless, take care, and I hope you enjoy the show. And don't let this stop you from coming over to the Philippines and making your Philippine dream. You know, I just want you to understand that you're going to have to think over here to try to alleviate this toxicity that is in the Philippines. And it would be in Thailand and Japan and China. It could be anywhere you go, because people are always going to be people, unfortunately. And if you can form a little group that's a good group, and I'm talking like a small group of rock solid friends that you can trust, those are the people that you want to hang around with. Don't think that more is better. It's not. Trust me, I've run into a lot of people. More is not better. It's actually worse. Less is better. Will I continue helping people? You bet I will, always. God bless, guys. Take care.